be doing 0.5 volume of 3D shapes. Your IXL that's associated with this lesson is U.7. And today we're actually going to be taking a couple extra notes aside from our worksheet. So there's going to be 3 main formulas that we deal with today. This is going to be part 1, and that's going to be prisms, cylinders, and the last one is sphere. So for volume, a couple of notes that we want to put down first is that volume will always be units cubed or units to the 3rd power. Now, the first one that we're going to work with is called a prism. And the primary prism shape that we're going to deal with is a rectangular prism. So that's the prism that we're going to focus on today. And on your formula sheet, you'll see that a rectangular prism is going to have the formula volume equals area of the base times the height. It's really important that you recognize that the capital B is on your reference sheet, and the capital B references whatever the area of the base might be. So you could have other types of prisms. Right now we're working with a rectangular prism, but you might see a triangular prism, you might see a trapezoidal prism, and for those you're always taking the area of whatever the base is of that shape and then multiplying it times the height. So we're going to keep referencing back that capital B stands for area of the base. And I'm going to highlight that specifically just as a reminder that capital B means area of the base. So you're always asking yourself, what shape is my base? Because if it's a rectangle, then we're going to use the rectangle area formula. If it's a triangle, then we're going to use the triangle area formula. And if it's a trapezoid, we're going to use the trapezoid area formula. But you have to identify what the shape of your base is before you can even go any further with this. So right now we're doing rectangular prism. So we're going to write rectangular prism. And I'm just going to create the diagram like what's listed on our notes. And we have the rectangular bases. Remember, those are what are parallel from each other. And with this rectangular prism, we are going to identify a couple dimensions. So we have 14 centimeters, we have 22 centimeters, and we have 6 centimeters. All right. Now, the base of this one that's laid out in your example shows that our base is this rectangle right here. Just highlighting it so you can see it a little easier. And we know that area of a rectangle, so let's put our formula down first. Volume equals area of the base times the height of the prism. The base is a rectangle, so that's lowercase b times h. This will give us the area of this base, and then we're going to times that by the height of the prism. So with this rectangular prism, the base is 14 times the height of 22, or you could say the base is 22 times the height of 14. Either way would be fine. 14 times 22, because remember with multiplication, it doesn't matter whichever one you multiply first, you're still going to get the same number. If I did 14 times 22, I'm going to get the same number if I did 22 times 14. And then times our height of 6. Okay, now that we have everything filled out in our formula, we're going to take our calculator and we're going to plug in. I just want to make sure you can see it. We're going to plug in 14 times 22 and press equals. And so that's going to give us 308. And then we're going to times that by the height, so times 6, and that will give us our total area. I'm sorry, that will give us our total volume. So our volume is going to be 1,848. Look back to your diagram. Your units are centimeters. So that's going to be centimeters to the power of 3. Now remember, it's only the centimeters that are being cubed here because you've already multiplied the 14 times the 22 times the 6 to get this 1,848. But you have to indicate that your units are being cubed because this is a volume problem. All right, so that should give you some example for a rectangular prism. Let's look at the next one, which is going to be a cylinder. So with volume of a cylinder, you're going to go back over to your formula sheet, and you're going to find that the volume formula for a cylinder is the same as the volume formula for a prism. And the reason that is because, again, we're taking the area of the base and then we're multiplying it to the height. So let's look at our cylinder. Our cylinder has a circular base and then its height. So in our diagram, they've given us the diameter of 8 yards, and they've given us a height of 19 yards. Now, if we're going to try to find the area of the base, we need to determine what the shape is of my base. So my base is a circle. You could highlight either the bottom one or the top one, but they're both your base. So whichever one you pick is fine because they're going to be equivalent. Now, in order to find, so let's write that down. The base is a circle. So in order to find the area of this base, the area of a circle equals pi times r squared. So we're going to write that over here. Pi times r squared is going to be the area of my base, and then whatever we get there, we will times it to the height. Now, the only two things we need in this formula is our radius and our height. We know our height because that's explicitly given to us. That's 19 yards. But we don't know our radius because they gave us the diameter. The diameter is 8 yards. But recall from last week when we did circles and area that the diameter is 2 times the amount of the radius. So if the diameter equals 8 yards, then the radius is half of that. So the radius would be 4 yards. Okay? So we're just going to fill out the information that we have. Pi times 4 squared, that's going to give us the area of our base, times our height, which is 19 yards. And when we solve all this, we'll have the volume of our cylinder. Now, remember that we're going to do exponents before multiplication. So go back to your calculator, and we're going to put in 4, and we're going to square it, which will give us 16. So for the area of our base, this is just 16 pi times 19. Recall from last week, we want to wait to multiply the pi out until the very end. So we're going to do 16 times 19 because remember that order of operations, multiplication, it doesn't matter. If they're all multiplying to each other, we can multiply whatever two that we want to together first. That's commutative property. You can move the numbers around as long as you keep the operation the same. So 16 times 19, we're going to put in our calculator. I've already got the 16 times 19 is going to give me 304. I have not multiplied the pi out yet, so it's 304 pi. So the volume equals 304 pi, and then our units are yards cubed. this would be considered your exact or precise answer, because keeping pi in the equation or the expression is going to be more exact than if you round it. So we're going to do this two ways. We're going to represent it with the exact solution, but then we're also going to represent it with the approximate solution where we've rounded it. So we still have 304 in our calculator. We're going to press times, and then we're going to press our pi button. Remember that pi is located down here next to the equal sign. So you press the pi button, and then you press equals. So this is an approximate amount of what 304 pi represents. Now I'm going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. Your test might ask you to round to the nearest hundredth or the nearest thousandth or even just the nearest integer. But for me right now, we're just rounding to the nearest tenth. So that's approximately 955. We look to the nearest tenth, it's a 0. And if you look to the right of that, it's a 4. So the 0 is going to stay the same. And because it's a 0 after the decimal, we're not required to put it. So it would just be approximately 955 yards cubed, and this is your approximate or your rounded value. But both of these represent the same answer. All right, let's look at the last one that we're going to go over for today, and that one is a sphere. So for the volume of a sphere, again, you're looking at your formula sheet, and volume will equal 4/3 pi r cubed. So that means 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. The only thing being cubed here is the radius. And we have an example on our notes. So let's go ahead and draw our diagram. Notice there's no base on the sphere. The only thing we need to get a value for is the radius. And this one gives us a radius, and I believe the radius is 19 millimeters. Okay, so we know the radius is 19 millimeters. We're just going to plug that value in and solve. So the sphere is really kind of simple. Volume will equal 4/3 times pi times 19 to the power of 3. And then we just really need our calculator for this one. So I'm going to show you a couple new tricks on your calculator, but have it out and you're going to put in the value 19 because we have to do exponents before we do multiplication. So 19, if we want to raise it to the power of 3, we're going to press this button right here. It says x to the power of y. Once you press it, now you can choose the exponent you want to give to the base of 19. So the exponent I want to choose is 3, and I'm going to press equals. So 6,859 is the same thing as 19 cubed. So I'm just going to rewrite this just so that we get in the habit of explaining our process. Remember that we want to wait and multiply pi out last if we can. So next we're going to multiply 4/3 to the 6859. And I did tell you I would teach you how to put fractions in this calculator, so we're going to do that now. So you have 6859 still in your calculator. You're going to press multiplication because we're going to times it. And in order to put 4/3 in, you're going to put 4, ABC, 3, and notice that gives you your that gives you your improper fraction. You should see it listed above. And then you're just going to press equals. So what we have here is a mixed number. This is 9,145 and 1/3. But we want an improper fraction whenever we're doing these calculations, not a mixed number. So I want you to look at this response that's in your calculator and look at the fraction button that we just used. The A is the big 9,145. The B over C is the second part of the mixed number, 1/3. But we don't want a mixed number. We want what's right above it. You should see D over C. that's your improper fraction. So if you press Shift and then the ABC button again, it gives you your improper fraction. So this is volume equals 27,436 over 3 times pi. And that would be our exact answer. And we would put our units were millimeters. So we're going to put millimeters cubed. And that would be your exact response. Now, if I asked you to round it, which you'll see happen also, that just means we're going to take this improper fraction and we're going to times it by pi. So 27,436 over 3 times, put your pi button in and press equals. And so this is your approximate response, which is going to be 28,730 point, and then the 9 would just stay because there's only a 1 after it, millimeters cubed. And this is your approximate or your rounded response. But these represent the same answer, just one is the exact, one's the approximate. So let's talk about why I want you to represent anything when we're using pi as one of them being your exact and one of them being your approximate. When you're testing, if the question asks you, what is the volume of this cylinder? They haven't said what is the volume rounded to the nearest tenth of this cylinder. If they just specifically say what is the volume of this cylinder, they're asking for the exact amount, which means it needs to be in terms of pi. If they ask what is the volume of this cylinder rounded to the nearest tenth, that's asking you to approximate and multiply the pi out. I'm going to repeat that again because it's the same thing for the sphere. So if they asked you, what is the volume of this sphere? They want the exact answer. They haven't asked you to do any rounding, so your answer should include pi because that's the more exact response. If they said, what is the volume of this sphere rounded to the nearest tenth, hundredth, or thousandth, we're looking for the approximated answer and you're multiplying the pi out. I hope that helps. I'm just going to do one more quick reminder with your fractions. If we want to put in 4/3 as a fraction, you're going to do 4, the numerator, ABC, 3. And that's your fraction. You can multiply it out to anything. You can add it to anything. You can subtract or divide it, even to another fraction. If I wanted to do 4/3 times, let's say, 1/3, right? Then you would multiply it out. It'd give you 4/9. You didn't have to find what the denominators were and simplify them. It's all done for you. And if you ever get a mixed number, just press Shift ABC, and that will give you your improper fraction. Okay? All right, try a couple of the examples. Remember, you're only going to try the rectangular prisms, the cylinder, and the sphere, and see how you do. If you have any questions, come see me tomorrow, and we'll talk through any of your questions.